Hey everyone, it's Sarah. I wanted to start doing some different kinds of videos where I talk about TV and music and maybe movies even. And today I really need to talk to someone about Game of Thrones. So the season finale of Game of Thrones was on last night, and I just wanted to give you all my thoughts on the entire season 5. Be careful for spoilers because this is going to be full of Season 5 spoilers, so if you haven't watched all of Season 5, I would go do that and come back. Alright, I've been a huge fan of Game of Thrones ever since the first season. I really enjoyed the first 3 books, and I really liked the first 4 seasons. But this season, I was not really that big of a fan of. I feel like it started out with a lot of promise. The first few episodes, not much actually happened in them, but I feel like with the way they ended it last season, it just set it up for a lot of interesting things to happen, and then I feel like it was kind of a disappointment. I think one of the reasons why it was my least favorite season is because it was based on the 4th and 5th books, and I think those are by far the weakest books. I feel like George R.R. Martin made everybody care about all of these characters in the first 3 books, and then because he killed so many of them off, he felt the need to bring in a whole bunch of new characters that no one really cared about in the 4th and 5th book. So I had high hopes for the 5th season because I knew that as a TV show, they weren't going to bring in all these new characters. And I thought they were going to focus mainly on the characters that we were already invested in, which is basically what they did, but I'm not a fan of what they did with the characters we were already invested in. Some of the season came from the books, and some of it did not. The only plotline that I actually enjoyed was Dany's plotline. It was really cool to see Tyrion and Daenerys finally meet up. That hasn't happened yet in the books. Obviously the scene where she flew away on Drogon was really cool. I was a fan of that. I love Ser Jorah, so I was really glad when they were back together, and it seemed that she was able to forgive him. I'm really sad about the fact that he has grayscale. I'm kind of hoping that someone will be able to heal that in the future seasons, but knowing Game of Thrones, probably not. I was really disappointed in Sansa's storyline. Obviously, there was the whole controversial rape scene with Sansa this season, which a lot of people were offended by, and rightfully so. That doesn't happen in the books. It does happen in the books, but with a different character, which in and of itself is horrible, but I really thought that with the end of last season and with Sansa kind of stepping up and becoming a player in the Game of Thrones, I thought she got to a point where she became one of the stronger characters, and then I feel like that just completely went out the window this season. Like, didn't she learn anything from Littlefinger? Speaking of Littlefinger, where the hell has he been? And I really did have problems with him just like leaving Sansa at Winterfell and going to King's Landing, which took him like 2 seconds, by the way, because I didn't really understand the reason why Cersei wanted him back in King's Landing. I guess it might have been to get his brothel guy to sell out Sir Loras. It's not that I think Littlefinger is like this, moral guy who wouldn't leave Sansa in a horrible situation. But he's using Sansa to gain power, I think, and I feel like she's a very valuable piece for him to have in this sort of chess game, and I just don't really buy that he would just leave her up in Winterfell with the Boltons. Yes, I guess in the show they tried to make it seem like he didn't know how bad Ramsay really was, but I don't believe that either. I mean, Littlefinger has got spies, kind of like Varys, and so I just feel like he would know everything that's going on. I know Littlefinger is not the best, but I do think he cares about Sansa in some way. I don't know how that's going to affect his behavior, but I didn't buy like anything he did this season. Anyway, so I was really disappointed in Sansa's storyline. Obviously, I thought the wedding night scene was atrocious. I thought that was completely unnecessary. I feel like the show is bringing a lot of violence against women in that was not in the books. There's a girl who wrote about this on Tumblr, and she made a lot of really great points, so I will link that post down below. You can check it out if you want. I had major problems with the whole Stannis, Shireen, that whole plot line. I feel like the entire season they were building Stannis up and trying to make us like him. He had that whole great emotional scene with Shireen where he told her, about how hard he fought essentially to keep her alive when she had grayscale, and I just really got the sense that their relationship was developing, and considering the way that it turned out, I mean, the scene where Shireen burns, I feel like that is the most messed up thing they have ever done on Game of Thrones. I feel like it was worse than the Red Wedding. Maybe not, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've read the books and so I knew the Red Wedding was coming when it did come in the show. But I feel like it was just the whole way that scene went was just absolutely horrible. And yes, this is Game of Thrones, so we should expect that. But it also didn't make sense. I feel like, considering how hard Stannis did work to save her life from the grayscale, and considering their whole relationship, and we've seen them bond, and we've seen that he loves her, and that she's his only heir, and the first time Melisandre suggested that he sacrifice her, he got really mad and told her basically to go to hell, essentially. And then in the next episode, just because there's a little bit of snow and 20 men have come and attacked him, like suddenly this is a good enough reason for him to sacrifice his daughter by burning her alive. I mean, I feel like he didn't exhaust all the possibilities there. I feel like he didn't really try that hard not to have to burn his daughter alive. I just didn't like that whole storyline. The whole Dornish plot line, that really got on my nerves the whole time. It started out so well. I saw like the Sand Snakes. I thought they were going to do something really interesting and cool, but then they didn't really, and I feel like that whole fight with Jaime and Bronn and the Sand Snakes was very unrealistic. I mean, okay, this is a fantasy show. The whole thing is unrealistic. It's fiction. I get that. But like, would it really make sense that they could just waltz in there, in the water gardens where all of these important people are hanging out? Like, there wouldn't be any security. They would just have a really easy time getting in there, and we're just gonna steal Princess Marcella and everything will be cool. And then it all happened to take place at the same time. Like, Jaime and Bronn came in right when the Sand Snakes were going to try to do something to Marcella. And I feel like the whole point of that whole story was just for Marcella to be poisoned at the end. Now, the battle scene with the White Walkers and Jon Snow, I feel like that was probably the coolest thing of the season. I feel like that was really well done, and you can tell where they spent all of their budget this season, really. I actually liked most of the storyline at the Wall this season. Obviously, with the exception of the end, I wouldn't freak out too much because I really don't think that Jon Snow is dead. I mean, he is dead, but I think that Melisandre is either going to resurrect him or he's going to warg into Ghost, maybe. I guess it is possible that he's really actually dead, but I just feel like him and Daenerys are kind of the main people holding this whole plot together. You know, A Song of Ice and Fire, I feel like they represent the ice and fire. And I just don't think Jon Snow is going to go out that way. I mean, I just think it was pretty pointless. I'm not entirely mad about it right now because I don't think that is... Yeah, overall, I had a lot of issues with this season, as you can tell. However, I will probably watch next season, and I will probably watch it until the end, because even though it keeps making me mad, I have invested so much time in these characters that I just want to see how it all ends. And I'm sure I will get to see that in the show well before the books, because it's going to take George R. R. Martin like 40 years to finish the books. I feel like after he's seen what the show has been doing, he's probably like writing really fast now. But I just feel like there were so many unanswered questions at the end of the season. Like, I don't think any of the storylines were really resolved. Here are the questions that I wrote down. What happened to Sansa and Theon? Did Stannis die? Where the hell is Littlefinger? Is Jon Snow actually dead? Why were the Dothraki running around Daenerys? What the hell is Bran doing? What happened to Sir Loras and Marjorie? What has Tommen been doing this whole time? Is Gendry still rowing? Obviously, there are going to be unanswered questions at the end of a season because they want you to keep watching the next season. But I just feel like at the end of every other season, there have been some loose ends that were tied up. Like, at least at the end of last season, the whole kind of Tyrion being on trial plot line was resolved. I don't think there was any good payoff for any of the storylines this season. Do any of you guys watch Game of Thrones? What did you think about it? Someone talk to me about this because I'm really irritated. I know it just sounds like I'm being negative and complaining about the whole season, but obviously I must like it somewhat because I did keep watching all season and I have been kind of obsessed. I still have high hopes for next season. I'm really hoping they kind of turn it around. Anyway, that's all for me on Game of Thrones. Don't forget to give me that thumbs up if you enjoyed my rambling about Game of Thrones. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos about writing or books. Or now, I'm going to be doing the occasional music and TV, possibly movie videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!